Dana Christensen and her husband Doug got the word that the bone cancer he had once beaten had returned. Devastating. But if battling cancer wasn't bad enough, the couple also found themselves in a fight they had never expected, a fight against their own insurance company.
I thought it was an outstanding policy, but it wasn't until we went to use it that we found out it did not cover what we were promised it covered. When we went to be admitted into the hospital, surgery was scheduled. The admittance office told us it was the worst policy they'd ever seen, that policy was so poor, we had to come up with $8,000 just to be admitted into the hospital.
It turns out their insurance was not covering a major portion of Doug's medical costs. $13,000 here, $27,000 there, almost $70,000 on this one.
And then one day my husband was in excruciating pain, and the morphine we had at home, nothing I could do would relieve his pain, so I called Cedars-Sinai to say, I'm bringing him in. He needs something. He needs to be relieved of this pain. And they said, I'm sorry, Mrs. Christensen, you guys are not allowed through these doors anymore.
When the Christensens bought their policy, they thought they were being very careful. They even decided to pay extra for $100,000 in chemotherapy coverage. For chemotherapy, their insurance paid up to $1,000 a day. Now, that might sound adequate until you learn, for example, the actual cost on this one day alone was more than $14,000, leaving the couple financially responsible for the difference. Eventually, the couple found themselves facing, listen to this, almost $500,000 in unpaid medical bills. It was a shock that forced them to consider a terrible choice.
He asked me to divorce him. He said, Dana, you know, we're up to $500,000 in medical bills. You know, you have to think about the finances here. And I said, I'm not going to divorce my husband because he's ill.
Only a year and a half after his cancer returned, Doug Christensen lost his battle.
I dealt with it daily. That's all I could do.
There was one other thing Dana could do under state law: sue for fraud and damages. Tony Stewart is Dana's attorney.
The conclusion I've come to is that basically, in order for them to be able to sell this policy, they have to misrepresent. Because if the policy were to be honestly presented to people, nobody would ever buy it.
With no admission of wrongdoing, the company paid Dana to settle the matter. Dana and Cedars-Sinai are in dispute over how much she still owes them. Mega offered to pay that hospital claim as well, but in exchange, the company wanted her to sign away her right to speak openly about her case. She was so angry, she refused and walked away from the additional money.
This is exactly why I'm here. I don't want people to go through this. It's ridiculous.
We're joined now by Dana Christensen. Why do you keep it up?
I refuse to sign a confidentiality agreement because this should not happen to people. I want to be able to talk about it. My husband said to me one day, it may be too late for me, but this should not happen to people, and I agree. But I want people to know what these companies do. I want them to be aware that they have to be very, very careful about what they're promised and what they're given.